Hey, yo, I want to talk about Star Trek, Magic the Gathering, and what a crossover between them might look like. And I think it's important to be clear, this isn't a real release. Yet. This hasn't been announced and it isn't even rumoured. Look, I just stuck the Star Trek logo over the one from Fallout. This is a creative exercise. I thought it would just be fun to look at how a universes beyond core set, like the Lord of the Rings release, might be structured if it were based on Star Trek. So to do that, I'm making 5 rules that I'm going to attempt to follow to help us out and keep us on track during this imagined development process. Rule number 1, it's a core set, so it needs to be draftable and standard legal. Rule number 2, Star Trek is a big franchise with a lot of different shows, films and history, and so the set must have 10 archetypes to give us a chance at representing as much of it as we can. Rule number 3, today we're only looking at the overall set composition. We're not going to be discussing individual cards or even really set mechanics, because we'll be here all day. Instead, we're looking at the general flavour and style of each of the 10 archetypes. I may do a video in the future fleshing out specific cards and mechanics more if that's something you guys want. Let me know in the comments. Rule number 4, the set needs broad appeal, something that even casual fans will recognise and respond to, which means, for instance, featuring every era of the show. But also your average person has probably heard of a Klingon, so there'll be a big presence in the set. But don't expect a Tholian assembly deck or support for the Salt Vampire Tribal. I'm sure things like that will get 1 or 2 cards, but we're not focusing on them today. Rule number 5, forget the colour pie. We'll try and stick to its themes a bit, but if the dragons from the D&D set can ignore traditional colour design space and be based on vibes, then so can the cards we design here, if needed. And that's it. So let's start in the obvious place of asking, what are our 10 archetypes? And to do Star Trek justice, there's really only one answer. Each archetype is going to be a different race, government, or faction from the series, allowing you to build decks around the Romulans or the Borg and then fight them against each other, replicating the epic space battles or tense diplomatic relations that you might see on screen. There's a lot of factions to choose from though, so again, let's start with the obvious one first. The United Federation of Planets. On screen. These cards are going to cover Starfleet, the Vulcans, the Tellarites, and all the other aliens that we see serving aboard Federation ships. They'll also include humans, from every era, and not just the captains, but other crew including science, tactical and command, and engineering. For playstyle, I suspect the Federation will revolve around teamwork and employing anthems or something like the training mechanic from Crimson Vow that adds +1/+1 counters to your other cards. Something we'll try and keep unique to this archetype alone. And speaking of archetypes, that leads us to our first question that we need to address around them. The colour spread. See, when I first imagined this set, I was going to do the 10 combinations of 2 colour pairs, but look at Starfleet. 2 colours just isn't how the Federation roll. In Magic terms, you could almost say they're very blue, red, and white. Or at least they feel like a natural fit. And so, I feel that choice is made for us. We're making 10 sets of 3 colour pairs, and the first of which is the Federation, represented by blue, red, and white cards. And hey, I can already feel you all rushing down to the comments. I know, and if you're a maverick who won't listen, then by all means carry on typing. But if you're a Star Trek fan, then stop. Because there's 2 things that you should know before you hit post telling me how wrong I am. First, remember rule number 5, forget the colour pie. And secondly, you might want to wait until the end of the video because there are some more controversial choices coming up and I expect some flack. But before that, Klingons, the long-standing frenemy of the Federation. And yeah, you can include in your comment listing my errors that I use the word frenemy. I can't think of a mechanic that captures the Klingons better than Kaldheim's Boast mechanic. And we'll give them some death triggers too, reflecting a Klingon's willingness to fight and honourably die in glorious combat. But what about the colours? Well, while we're not sticking to the colour pie as lore, as I said, we can still take inspiration from it. And I feel like a Klingon's eagerness for battle makes them a perfect fit for red. A Klingon's rigid adherence to duty and honour aligns nicely with white. And I feel the Klingons should also be green because, well, look at them. It just fits, you know? So that's the Klingon Empire, represented by red, green and white. Next up is the Romulans, another age-old enemy of the Federation. Famous, or I suppose infamous, for their spy networks, deceitfulness, and natural inclination to bury secrets within secrets within secrets. I feel like the recent mechanics of disguise and cloak from Murders at Karloff Manor would be a perfect fit for the Romulans. And taking another leaf from Magic when looking at the colours, Romulans can be very self-serving, which is often represented by black. They're intelligent and secretive, which is often represented by blue. And I feel the Romulans should also be green because, well, look at them. It just fits, you know? So that's the Romulan Star Empire, represented by black, green, and blue. Let's do the other famous Federation enemy next, the Borg, Star Trek's equivalent to the Phyrexians. And so, to pay homage to that, I want to bring back the way oil counters played from All Will Be One, but rework them to something like assimilation counters, and copy Gissa Glorious Resurrector a bit and have a focus on preventing opponents' creatures from going to the graveyard if they had one of those counters on them when they die, and instead playing them on your side of the table to reflect the Borg's way of adding new members to its collective. As for colours, the Borg are a structured, ordered hive mind, and from their perspective they're helping other species reach their full potential, so I think they're white. But the Borg do inflict this help whether that species wants it or not, and so that and the graveyard focus means they're also black. And I feel that the Borg should also be green because, well, look at them. It just fits, you know? Okay, I can't keep doing that joke. But that's the Borg Collective, represented by white, black and green. Next, let's do a decidedly more neutral party to the Federation, the Ferengi. Now, the Ferengi are special because when asked which Star Trek species she could name, my mum bafflingly listed the Ferengi third, behind Klingons, I think, and that Mr. Spock. She described them as the monster ones that run the bar, meaning that at some point my mother has watched Deep Space Nine and remembered the word Ferengi. This is wild stuff. Anyway, the Ferengi are a species of Ragavants. They're all about the treasure. But they're also traders, and so much like Glunch, I expect a lot of politicking around group hug mechanics from them. The Ferengi are cunning and wise, so blue, but the Ferengi also know when to be aggressive and press their advantage or defend their assets, so red. And I feel the Ferengi should also be green because, well, look at them. I mean, come on, that's their faction logo. Okay, that's the last time, I promise. But with that, the Ferengi Alliance are represented by green, blue and red. Next up, a faction containing some of my favourite Star Trek species, like the Nausicaans, the Lethians, and the Gorn. But not really one faction at all. No, this faction is made up of pirates, mercenaries, and criminals. Space gangsters that, for thematic ease, I'm going to group into one faction under the name of the Orion Syndicate. Mechanically, these outlaws are going to steal both the crime and the spree mechanics from Thunder Junction, with a focus on forcing your opponents to switch control of permanence like we see with the Trickster God's Heist. I think this will reflect the way that Star Trek's pirates don't usually just steal stuff, but trade it on the black market. Oh, black market, maybe they could have that too. But yeah, the underworld dealings of this archetype equals black. The armed piracy makes them red, and we need one more colour for the Orion Syndicate. Orions. Is there a colour that springs to mind when thinking about the Orions? Okay, fine, I know I said it was the last time, but look at them, they're literally green. So, given that, this means that the Orion Syndicate is represented by black, red and green. Who's next? It's the Jem'Hadar, the Vorta, and the Changelings of the Dominion. I was going to include the Cardassians and Breen here, but honestly I feel like the Dominion already have enough going on what with being dictatorial shapeshifters without the inclusion of lizard space Nazis and Daft Punk wannabes, so I've put them on their own. For mechanics, the Changelings all get the, you guessed it, Changeling ability, or enter as a copy of another creature. The Jem'Hadar should get things like Undying and Death Touch to show how deadly they are in combat, and the Vorta should be utility creatures that draw cards or generate mana. The Changelings love dictating rules for everyone else, so they're white. The Vorta's utilities make them a good candidate for blue, and the Jem'Hadar deadliness in battle is summed up nicely by black. Which means that the Dominion are represented by white, blue and black. Now I mentioned that the Breen and the Cardassians wouldn't be represented as part of the Dominion in this set, but quite frankly the Breen really don't have enough going on to be an archetype at all. Name me 3 Breen characters. And don't forget rule number 4, broad appeal. But the Cardassians, however? Well, they've been represented in games as playable races or factions before, and they're far too ingrained into Star Trek canon to leave off. I think the dual aspect of their government with Cardassian Central Command and the Obsidian Order lend themselves nicely to an aristocrats theme. So, a bunch of token generation, maybe depicting races from worlds that they're occupying, and then a bunch of ways to sacrifice those tokens for profit. I think Anello the Painter and Gul Dukat would get on famously. And as for the colours, well, I feel like Anello pretty much gives the game away. The Cardassians are cunning, deadly and ruthless, meaning the Cardassian Union is represented by blue, black and red. But you know what? It's been a minute since we've seen any friendly faces. How about the next faction is someone we recognise? Oh, here we go, it's... Wait. No, that's not right. Hang on, that's not right either. Oh no, that must mean the next faction represented is the Mirror Universe. which I'm grouping under the name of the Terran Empire. And as a dark reflection of Starfleet, I feel like we should turn the +1/+1 mechanics from the Federation archetype on its head and have the Terran Empire dish out -1/-1 counters. And perhaps like Atraxa, they could proliferate too, to illustrate the Terran Empire's ever-growing domination and subjugation of their universe. Where the Federation was blue, red and white, I think it's appropriate that their mirror counterparts should be similar, but not exactly the same. Hence, the Terran Empire is red, white and black. And finally, if you Trekkies are still waiting for a moment to leave your comment, well, here it is, because for the last faction, I went back and forth for about a day on who it should be. Maybe it should be the Breen. They're certainly powerful enough. I like the idea of Species 8472 being represented, like they were in Star Trek Armada 2. I loved that game. The Q Continuum would make an interesting faction, and they're certainly recognisable enough, but probably a bit overpowered. When I asked around for thoughts, some guy suggested that the last faction should just be called Strange New Worlds and include weird obscure shit, like that tar monster that kills Tasha, the crystal monster from that one episode, or Barclay when he had super intelligence. Good ideas, for sure, but then I had to ask myself, who would I want it to be? And so selfishly, upsettingly, and without logic or reason, the last faction is the Andorians, because I fucking love Andorians. They are easily the best race in Trek. Look at their antennae. Look at this dude from the Voyage Home. Look at how sick their uniforms are. You're telling me you don't love Shran? You're telling me you don't love, their white hair? I don't even mind the recent redesign, and that's saying something because there is not much that I like about recent Trek. As for mechanics, well that's easy. Snow. And like Isu the Abominable, effects revolving around playing snow permanents. Which I guess means the set also has snowlands, so okay, always nice to see those get reprinted. As for the colour, well we only have one combination left. And like their hair, the Andorians are white. Like their skin, the Andorians are blue. And I feel the Andorians should also be green. Because, okay. Next Generation, Season 3, Episode 16, Data and Troy take Lau to choose an appearance, and one of the options is a green Andorian. My logic is flawless. Which means the Andorian Empire is represented by green, white and blue. And we're done. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I would be very surprised if you would have made the same choices as me here. Did I pick the right factions? Did I get the faction colours right? What would you do different for faction mechanics, bear in mind my 5 rules? Would you buy this set if it came out? Do you think they'll ever do a Star Trek crossover? Who's your favourite captain? Mine's Janeway. And most importantly, let me know why you agree that Andorians are the best race. Oh boy, I'm going to get comments on this one, aren't I? Well, I like them, and the video's over now, so it's too late to change it or add anything. Oh wait, the Caitians, fuck! I thank you very much for watching this video, and thank you to my patrons whose names are on screen now. I'd also like to thank the sponsor for this video, me and my Patreon page, where you can get your name credited on screen too. Check it out in the link in the description below. Hit the like button, leave a comment, install an ad block, and most importantly subscribe and share this video with a friend. Hit the notification bell and do all those things the algorithm loves. If you agree or disagree with any of my points, or you want to see me do a video on another subject, let me know and I will see you next time.